Greetings and bienvenue, midnight crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Be me, 16 years old. Live in a shitty small town. Often meet with 5 to 8 friends and go to the graveyard. Edgy. Always fuck around, climb on big tombstones. One night there with about 7 of us, same shit. Notice weird light in sky, mention it. All watch it, making split-second 90-degree turns. Movin' fast, turning on a dime, not like any plane or satellite or shooting star. All of a sudden it goes up in a mini explosion, no sound. The lighting changes. Like the whole environment, lighting changes. You know how sometimes at dusk it's a little blue as the sun goes down? Well, the lighting went about 3 shades different at the snap of a finger. All look at each other and sense something bad, run away. Long dirt road through woods to get back into town from the graveyard. Me and the girl are at the back of the group, slowing down about halfway out. Hear twigs breaking in the woods near us. What the fuck? PNG. Slow down and look into the brush. See a pale figure, looks like a kid. Kind of hunched down, crawling through woods slow with face pointed down. Look at her on some WTF type shit. She sees it too. Hang there for a second to make sure eyes aren't playing tricks on me. Nope. Definitely a pale naked thing crawling through brush. Yell, what the fuck? Run fast to catch up with rest, don't look back. Once we catch up, explain to other what happened, reconfirmed with her what we both saw, yup. Same thing. See me now, 24. Message girl, haven't spoken in years. Ask her if she remembers that night and what we saw. Yes, K, just making sure. Continue living life. Spooky times. I went on a weekend vacation with friends to go sightseeing. These are the following things that happened over 3 days. I can elaborate on them further if interest is there. These are events that happened at a cottage that we rented. Upstairs looked like a children's infirmary from the 30s. Heard children laughing upstairs during the night. Uni kids next door up and leave while screaming and crying in the middle of the night. Old couple checking out, despite the vehicle and belongings still being there. Wire noose found in the woods. Huge Bigfoot-sized handprint on the inside door window. Got chased by something through a field. The couple who rented the cottage out to us tried to sabotage friend's car.
Yay, if that's straight up true shit. Elaborate cause damn.
Cool then, getting chased through a field. Cottage has a full bathroom. It was pretty nice because there were 4 of us. However, unfortunately there are 2 girls who like baths. Unfortunately I have to shit and they are ignoring any pleas for PLS let me take a shit. There was a field in front of the cottage, not a totally flat field. It was a bit of a slope and had some tall bushes and trees at one corner. Have fear of getting pulled into bushes and getting assaulted, so tree it is. Find a nice white birch tree that has been felled and use it to sit on while taking a shit. July 23, 2014, so it is summer and near the ocean is cool. Trying to ignore the sounds of my stomach screaming in German. Suddenly I hear it. Step step step. Perk up and freeze. Step step step. Hear it coming from behind me, so haul up my shorts and look around. Nothing, it is very much daytime as well. Scanning every inch of my surroundings for any movement. When I turn my back to the woods, step step step. Start to walk up toward the cottage again, which would be the equivalent to a 5-minute walk. I walk away from the woods with my back to the field and the weird noise stops. I start walking up the slope thing back to the cottage when I hear something break into a sprint. I swing around and just catch it diving into a bush. It has gray fur. I stare at the bush and am walking backwards up the slope very slowly. Suddenly fight or flight kicks in heavily and before I know what's going on, my legs are already carrying me. Unbeknownst to me, there are thorn bushes which I fall into and cut the fuck out of legs and arms. As I'm trying to get out of the shitty thorn bushes, I hear it panting as it's coming toward me. I swing around and see this weird thing that looks like a gray bear with a black stripe down its back, but the head is way too big for a black bear. Literally yell the first thing that comes to my head out loud. It's fucking zoinks, like I'm in fucking Scooby-Doo. Sprinting as fast as I can, this thing is gaining on me really fast. I burst through the bushes covered in blood from the thorns and trip onto the lawn in front of the cottage, thinking, this is it, I'm dead. Close my eyes, preparing for death. Nothing. Open my eyes. See it staring at me from the edge of the bush line. Stand up. Back away slowly, go into the cottage and have a panic attack. No super climatic ending, but that happened. If only they let me shit in the bathroom. Car getting sabotaged. So last night there was when a bunch of weird things happening, I'll get into that later. We were gonna leave on Sunday morning. 7 a.m. Packing our shit because we are overtired, haven't slept and want to go home. Look outside and see one of the people who own a campground hovering around the car. Watch him for a minute to see what he's doing. Goes underneath the car for a minute and gets up and looks around and runs back up through the woods. We start the car and everything appears normal. Drive over to check out the place. Something dragging on the underside of the car. Check out and shit, drive away really slowly. The people stare at us while we leave. We stop in front because the dragging sound is bad. Computer hanging down touching the gravel. Glare at the guy like, you fool. Manage to take some haywire and kinda tie it to something on the underside of the car. While driving, notice that the brakes are being weird, like kinda working but kinda not. The brake line has a small slit in it, like someone tried to cut it. What the fuck was wrong with those people? We tried to find out what their names were, but they had sold the campground and fucked off.
Every time I post these people say I'm LARPing. Okay, here goes. B12. I live in Shithole Town in Arkansas. Always have burn nights in our burn barrel. Great-grandma had a bunch of creepy dolls that we think were haunting the house. So we burned them. We'll post about those happenings after this. Anyway, Dad and Mom were sauced, smoking weed inside. I decided to go back out to the fire to chill and rub fireflies on my arms. I'm all alone. Dogs won't follow me for some reason. Standing in a gravel carport. Dogs are just barking, one is whining. Wonder WTF they're barking at. Squint to see the edge of the yard. Had a bunch of uninhabited land and a creek behind our house, but was separated by a stone wall plus fence on top. See what looks like a pale humanoid. Had no face or fingers or toes. Looked like a squid kind of. At least the head did. Was about 6 feet tall. It just stayed there, completely motionless. Never made any movement or sound. Head started to hurt, vision blurred. I passed out. Wake up in the bathtub in different clothes. An outfit I never even owned actually. It was about midnight when I woke up. Had a dream about the Baldur's Gate game I was currently playing for some reason. In the dream I was absorbed by the gelatin cube enemies in the game. For some reason I was scared but aroused. Parents and friends never believed me. We'll continue with spooks about the house and the ghosts in it, and various UFOs me and my family have seen in the area. The house we lived in was definitely haunted. Used to be part of a larger house that enveloped the whole block. Was a slave-owning plantation. One night playing Vice City, and having to pee. Go from my room to the bathroom and on the way see a ghost of an old lady. She was wearing a pink silk dress with sunflowers on it, and looked almost Japanese. But the old lady ghost was white. She had no hands, but was wearing matching pink silk slippers, shoes. She also had no eyes, just dark holes. She reached up at me. Instinct takes over. I scream as loud as I can and run through her. Was very cold and icy inside her. I go inside the bathroom and shut and lock the door. Scream for my mommy. Since I locked the door like a dumbass, she couldn't even get in. When we first moved into the house, she had so many dolls. One in particular was very creepy. It was an angel made of ceramic. I was trying to sleep on the couch and the doll had her hands out like she was holding something. In her hands, a glowing ball of blue light. I remember feeling very peaceful and went straight to sleep. Now, here's the creepy part. Next day, think I like sleeping in darkness more. Look for the plug in a nearby wall socket to unplug the doll. It had no lights of any sort or any cords running to it. Would often swim at night in our inflatable pool. Was very humid and hot in the summers. If you've been to Arkansas, you would know. Laying back on a floaty, looking at the clear sky. Saw what looked like a rocket fly across the sky. It was very bright and went faster than any plane I've ever seen in my life. Was slower than a shooting star though. Some say it was a meteor or satellite or even the ISS. Went on a pretty particular path, so maybe they're right, but it gave me a creepy vibe. Second UFO I saw in Arizona. Be driving with my mom to McDonald's. Wanted some late night burgers, nuggets and fries. Don't worry, I'm not fat and never will be. See a triangle-shaped UFO above us. It keeps warping. In a triangle formation. Like it'd be here, then there and then in another place. But only in a triangle shape. We start talking about it. Dad is like, yeah, whatever. He was always a skeptic until he saw a ghost of his friend. We'll post about that later. Anyway, after warping around for a while, UFO goes to the center of triangle formation. Each of the three lights shoots off. Each in the direction of the triangle formation it was making earlier. Could be military shit, who knows.
Dad lived in girlfriend's house. Her mom self-ended because her brother died years ago and she couldn't take it anymore since he died, so did she. Dad goes out for dinner. Friend says, "You go on without me, you'll see me when you get back." When Dad gets back, friend is hanging in the closet, dead. Dad isn't afraid of the dark. So he's chilling in the dark of a dead man's house. Sees the guy's ghost with no eyes. Walks into a mirror in the hallway. Later that night or just later, he had a dream about the guy who died. Kept saying, "You gotta get my eyes back, my eyes." Apparently his eyes were donated to a kid in California so he could regain his sight.
B23. Living in California. Live up in some hills in the Bay Area. Smoking a bowl on my back porch. The porch light is out so it's really dark. Hear footsteps about 20 to 30 feet down the hill of my yard. Sounded like someone wearing shoes, definitely human sounding. Used the light on my LG smartphone. Couldn't see shit. Could still hear the footsteps now getting closer. Say fuck that and go inside, lock door. Wasn't allowed to smoke inside my family's house. Say fuck it and smoke weed in the garage. I can still hear someone crunching around in my yard. Yard was very big and slanted so you could easily lay down or hide behind a tree. I come back out with a more powerful light and my bastard sword. Scream at the top of my lungs and charge the tree where I heard footsteps. Start chopping at the tree, looping branches off. Be full-blown artistic and say get the fuck off my property or I'll cut your head off your dead body. Heard someone run away into the neighbor's bushes. Neighbor was super old and retired so it wasn't him. Couldn't shine light in time, whoever or whatever it was very fast. A couple nights later I saw a pale naked humanoid kind of like in my previous post jump my other neighbor's fence. Saw that one from my bedroom though, which was in the garage. I built it myself. It was a makeshift room.
Be me. 17. Go on a backpacking trip over the summer through a school program. Me and 10 other kids in Mount Skokomish wilderness with a ranger and an intern. The ranger was a 60-year-old man, really quiet and kind of grouchy. The intern was some college girl pursuing a job like him. Hike and camp for about 4 days, not much happens. Occasionally catch the ranger checking out some of the girls at the camp. Don't think much of it. He only ever talks to the intern. About midway through the whole thing we all smell terrible, but getting used to it, important. Late one night, really windy, I have my flashlight and go to take a dump in the woods. Go to the latrine. On my way back, when I smell something fucking nasty. Like I said, we were used to the smell of body odor and this definitely wasn't body odor. Start following the smell in the dark. Tripping over logs and shit. Don't intend to go very far. Pass a tree and the ranger is just standing still beside me like a statue. Says, "Pretty warm out, huh?" Just sort of stand there. He goes walking back to the campsite and says the latrine is the other direction. The smell is still fucking awful, so I pretend to walk to the latrine, but once he's gone I go back and follow the smell. It gets really bad. It smells like really sour shit and vomit. Follow it, gagging, until I come across a little clear patch of ground. The intern is totally naked, sitting in a pile of her own shit, vomit, and blood, crying. Totally smeared in all of it. A few bloody, shitty sticks right beside her. She's just crying with her legs spread and sort of shaking. I ask if she's okay. She says yes. Ask if I can help. She says no. Walk back to camp fucking terrified and guilty. The ranger is in his tent, I guess, because I can't find him around camp. Go into my tent and turn off the flashlight. Lie there for a while, can't sleep. Hear big footsteps walking away from right near my tent. I was near some trees, so I guess he was standing outside of my tent for a while. Don't sleep at all. The next day, eventually find her filtering water. Ask if she's okay. She says she doesn't know what I'm talking about and to go help the others make dinner. The rest of the trip I literally cannot get within 10 feet of her. She's just always not near me. She and the old ranger dude are really talkative. He's really friendly. Compliments my outdoor skills a lot, etc. Hike out eventually and go to a ranger station, lodge for a night before driving out. There's an older woman ranger there. I tell her everything that happened. She seems very concerned and takes my phone number. That night I went to shower. Came back and found my room and all my belongings totally raided. Say fucking nothing to anyone the whole drive back to Boise. This was before Facebook. I've tried to look some of them up since but only ever had luck with the intern, who I eventually think I found on a USFS website by pure chance when I was researching something totally different. It only had the first name listed but the face looked right.
16 to 17 years old watching TV in the living room at night with the lights off. Must be just after midnight. Both dogs we had at the time in the room. One next to me on the sofa, one asleep on the chair in the opposite corner. Start to feel uneasy. My eyes keep getting drawn to the corner my dog is in. Suddenly Doggo jumps off the chair and comes over to me cowering and shaking. Both dogs stare intently into the corner, the one on the sofa growling a little. WT4. Feel an intense dread like I haven't felt before or since. Try to move, realize I can't. Can't move my hands or legs. Can just about move my head and neck. See a darkness form within the darkness of the corner, like it became blacker and deeper. somehow managed to say leave. Get out. You are not welcome here. A few seconds later the shadows in the corner return to normal, I'm able to move again and the dogs calm down. Decide fuck this, I'm going to bed. This is why I don't necessarily buy the whole shadow people are just sleep paralysis visions. I wasn't asleep, I didn't wake up to feel this presence, I essentially witnessed and felt its manifestation, starting with how the dogs behaved.
My shadow people experience was also a wide awake one. I was walking home late at night from a friend's house. It was a good 3 miles or so. I took the usual route home, cutting through a field of grass in my small town. I heard the loud, banging noise of pots and pans and a dog barking in reaction to it. Standing in the middle of the field and looking at the direction of the noise, I saw what looked like a 7 or 8 foot tall black figure, seemingly robed. It had no other definable features. It was just thin, tall, and possibly robed. The back porch from where it had run from had its lights on, so I saw this thing clearly in the night. When it saw me it stopped. And, by the way, this entity had raced out of the back porch area before stopping. I'm talking 28 days later hyper zombie speed. We seemed to lock gazes. I couldn't see its eyes, but the longer that I stared at it, the more I realized that I had it locked into position simply by staring at it. We were about 10 yards away from each other. I had a machete in my backpack, and, not letting my gaze go, I bent down and pulled it out of my bag. I stood there ready for a time, but received no response other than a locked gaze. I decided to look away for a moment and it immediately continued its racing path across the field. It left me feeling afraid, naturally, but I had no feelings of evil from it. More like a feeling of mutual respect.
Was around 10 p.m., summer 3 years ago. Me and my mate went out for a walk and a beer. We sat at an empty basketball field behind the high school I used to go to when I was still young and beautiful. Anyway, we were just sitting there talking and chilling, smoking cigarettes. At some point I noticed a bright spot in the sky that I thought was just a star, but looking at it I couldn't shake off the feeling that it's very slowly moving. I pointed it out to my mate and he focused on that thing too. It became obvious that the thing is indeed moving because it changed its position relative to the other stars around it. Now I was willing to pass it off as a low Earth orbit satellite or something like that, but it changed direction of movement every so often. Sometime during the next hour, the object lowered its altitude and now it was obvious it was below the cloud layer. It was emitting off light, but not like aircraft lights. Its bottom was glittering and shining with various shades of deep purple, violet, orange and other a bit hard to describe warm colors. Around this time the object got even lower, the lowest it got to that evening. I couldn't make out much of it, it seemed spherical in shape. At one point it turned on what appeared to be a spotlight from its side. We could see a single beam of white light emitting off into the clouds. It would move around a bit, and the object itself too would move around but always still in the same general area in the sky above us. Now, keep in mind up to this point I thought it was someone messing with a drone or something. It was weirdish but nothing mind-boggling or anything. That's when shit got real. The object turned off the spotlight and started rising altitude again. There is a very large airport close by, and lots of air traffic around where I live. An airliner was in the air, and it was flying in the direction of the weird object. In fact, the airliner was flying exactly at the object. So the airliner was on a direct collision course with the weird thing, or at least that's what it seemed like. The object itself could have been above or below the airliner's path and it only seemed like it was at the same altitude. Hard to judge that as a ground observer. And that, my friends, is when the shit got real. That thing just jumped out from the airliner's path. It just went poof and jumped some 600 meters or something around that in the air in less than a second. It didn't teleport though. It looked like in Star Wars when the ships jump to FTL and stars stretch out. The light from the object just stretched from one point to another. From being completely motionless, it went into super speed without accelerating and then immediately just halted without slowing down or anything. When I saw this, I just looked at my friend and was like, what the fucking fuck? Did you just fucking see that? And he did. We both saw it. Now I'm pretty fucking sure even the prototype, most top secret American military prototypes, can't pull off that kind of physics breaking shit. From that point on, the object lingered around for a bit longer, and then it started moving west in a slow, but constant speed, until it disappeared from view. The entire encounter lasted about 2 hours. It was also in a very large metropolitan area, not in some stereotypical cornfield or dark forest far from civilization. I remember checking UFO sighting and stories for the next few days, looking if anyone saw something even remotely similar in the surrounding areas during that time, but haven't found much.
Back when I was 17, I was huge into historical reenactment. Lived in New England, so American Revolutionary War it was. My pops and I were driving to the rebuilt Fort Ticonderoga, right on top of the original location of the fort. It was in the middle of nowhere, only farmers' fields and woodlands surrounding the fort for many miles, along with the occasional country store. Fields and surrounding areas were supposedly riddled with unmarked mass graves, a result of the numerous battles having taken place there. A lot of spooky lore and legends surrounding the place. Evening falls, and the reenactors representing the Brits get to camp inside the cozy reconstructed fort, while us colonial scrubs pitch tents and shelters in the woods a half-mile away, near the old battle lines. Each assorted regiment is around their campfires, drinking, eating, telling stories and singing songs. Great time. My pops and I decide to take an evening stroll through the grounds, and so we go down the road, illuminating the various monuments and plaques by phone light. Not after long, we are so far down the road that the lights from the camp are no longer visible, and so there we are, walking down a road illuminated only by moonlight. After a while, we hear a rustling, echoing around the path. It's dark, and we have both stopped in our tracks, listening, trying to pin down its origin. After a few moments, the rustling becomes more of a rattle, and we can now tell that it's coming from further down the road. After a few moments, a figure is finally visible, as we peer harder into the dark. It looks like a man pushing a shopping cart. We watch him come closer and closer, and soon we realize he is dressed in 18th century garb, same as I. As he comes to us, he stops. His cart is full of beer. He stops for a moment and has a chat. He had apparently gone out for his regiment on a beer run, and we had a chuckle over the day's earlier events. Eventually, he asked us who those fellows with torches were. We were hard. He insisted that as he was approaching us, he had seen a bunch of men in colonial garb, carrying torches, emerge from the woods, a couple 100 feet behind us, cross the dirt road, and enter the woods on the other side. We had been so transfixed on his approach out of the dark, that we had never thought to look behind us. We then look around the woods, and onto the road, but we can see nothing. The light from camp wasn't even visible from this far out. When we told him that we hadn't been walking with any others, and that we had seen no men out on our walk, he grew visibly confused. We had assumed that it was some other regiment that had come out on an evening exercise to visit the varying landmarks and monuments, littering the battlefield, but when we had returned to camp, the three of us went from regiment to regiment, asking if anyone had been out in the woods with torches. Everyone was accounted for. No one had any idea what the fellow was talking about. At that, he was visibly distressed, and my father and I were obviously confused.
My dad and I had a nervous chuckle over it, and never really talked about the odd experience ever again.
Be me around 22. Going home from the bar shitface but somewhat lucid. Take the peaceful street I always take. The street is short but dark except for 4th Street lights. Start climbing the street and see a girl with headphones looking at her phone under the first light. Think nothing of it until I almost reach the light. The girl is gone. Damn. That was one hell of a bender, now I'm seeing shit, is what I thought. The street flattens out and I see the girl standing at the 3rd light but vanishes again as I reach the 2nd. Didn't see her after that. Come home, pass out, forget about it. A week or so later I'm going home at night again. Similar time, same route but this time sober. See the girl again at the 1st light. This time I pay attention and walk faster, but still disappears as I come close. See her at the 3rd light again. I yell, "Hey, excuse me," but she doesn't respond. Came close to the 3rd light but she disappeared again, but appeared at the 4th. Come close to the 4th and she's still there. Try to joke. You should find a better hobby than creeping the fuck out of people every evening. She turns her head and stares at me but says nothing. I'm sorry. I saw you a week ago and I guess my drunk ass thought you were playing a joke with me. She keeps staring but finally says,
"You're late again."
Looks back at her phone and types something. What? But I don't ever. She walks away into the dark towards an illuminated crossroad but doesn't show up. There's nowhere she could have gone that I wouldn't spot her. As she took off, a notification on my phone went off as well, startling me, but I think nothing off at ATM. Come home and try to make sense of it but give up after a while and go to sleep. Wake up next morning, make coffee and check my phone as usual. See a text from my uni colleague.
Hey man, did you tutor the girl yesterday? Can't reach her. I know you're doing me a favor, but it would still be a total dick move after last week. The midterms are coming.
Fucking shit. I was supposed to cover a tutoring job for him last week and this one but totally messed up. I'll deal with this later. Let's check the news. Weird. The update time on the app says it's current, but the latest news is from around 11 p.m. last night. Refresh. Okay, it works now. Tragedy in my college town. Young woman killed by drunk bus driver, feels bad. A bus that was driving on the 134 line ran over a young woman who was waiting at the station. The bystanders said they yelled at her but she didn't hear their screams because she was wearing headphones. What in the fuck? Freaking slightly out by now, but check other sources. They all say the same but none of them have her pic or full name. Ask my colleague and confess my fuck up. He's pissed but gives me her full name. Check Facebook. It's here, it's the fucking Streetlight Girl. Notice that I know her bestie. Hit her up, make something up about an assignment or some shit.
I don't have time to talk now. My friend got killed yesterday.
Oh my god, are you okay? What happened? Keeping it believable.
Some drunk piece of garbage bus driver ran her over. It's in the news.
Wait, aren't classes over until like 5 p.m.? What was she doing there so late? A lot of people didn't live in my college town but smaller ones nearby, so usually most people got out of there by 7 p.m.
She was waiting for some asshole who was supposed to help her out with econometrics, but he left her waiting for 4 hours. She would still be alive if the dickhead showed up.
I'm completely shell-shocked at this point. Oh, okay, tell me if something happens or you need something. Hang in there, didn't really know what to say at that point. Couldn't sleep at all for 2 days, everything was in a blur. Went to her funeral with my colleagues feeling completely numb. Had a small breakdown 2 weeks after it happened. Fucking cried and freaked out for at least a week and felt depressed for a month. Only walked that street by day. I still get freaked out by this situation even today. Never told anyone this except my brother, but he just thinks it's something I think happened while I was wasted.
be me. Growing up in West Ukraine in the 90s. Lots of unfinished Soviet building projects. 20-story buildings that kids play in and junkies shoot up in. The building that we claimed had an apartment that actually put a door on and cleaned up. One morning in summer, we were out there fucking around and some homeless guy was shuffling around by the building next to ours. I tell my friends. We seal up the apartment and watch him. A guy comes into our building. Looks drunk. Actually walks down the hallway on our floor, we can hear him singing. Starts banging on our door. Says he knows we stole his vodka. We hadn't. Goes into the apartment next to ours. Shouts at us from the window in the adjacent unit. Tell us he's going to come from the window. Falls out the window. It's the 18th story. He's just sitting there. We debate as to what to do. Maybe argue for 10 minutes. Hear banging on the door. We look back out the window. The guy is gone. We panic. Move everything to the door barricade. Banging lasted for what felt like an hour, but there was no screaming or yelling. Stayed there till sunset. Scariest thing that has ever happened to me.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.